and take a look at Sri Lanka because it's a beautiful place to go and visit. I haven't been. I know someone there is there at the moment, and we're definitely thinking about going. So joining us this afternoon to talk about it is Lee Tulloch, weekly columnist for Traveller in The Age. Hi, Lee.
Hi, how are you, Trevor?
What do you think of Sri Lanka?
I love it. It's just about my favourite place in the world. And in fact, I was just thinking that I was there last year at exactly this time, and I don't know why I haven't been back again because it's such a beautiful small island. It's so diverse. You know, you've got jungles and you've got incredible beaches and you've got, you know, amazing ancient ruins in the centre of it and tea plantations. I mean, there's just so much in one place that is incredibly accessible as well. And of course, for us, it's not far to go. If you're in Melbourne, you're really lucky because you can go directly on Sri Lankan Airlines. So that's a plus.
It's just off the coast of India. So is there a strong Indian influence in Sri Lanka?
No, actually, I call it India on Valium because it's quite different and laid back. And in fact, last year I was talking to a hotelier there who said that the Indians actually love coming to Sri Lanka because it's so clean. It's yes, of course, the culture is. A lot of it has come across from India, so you get a lot of Indians who are there. Tamils are there, and there's a strong influence. But Sri Lankans are definitely their own thing, and because of course it's less populous, it just has a completely different vibe about it to India. It's so relaxing. It's absolutely beautiful. And I have to say, Indians might hate me for this, but I think Sri Lankan food is far better.
I was just going to mention that because I got introduced to Sri Lankan food probably about 6 months ago at a little restaurant in Melbourne, and it's beautiful.
Yes. Well, the thing is, it's really based on coconut, not so much the sort of the ghees and that sort of oil. So it's a little bit more like Southern Indian with the spices, but it is a spice island, so that they've grown all those spices as well. So the coconut spice mix, plus there's a bit of colonial influence, you know, from different kind of baking things that have come across from England, from Britain. It's a really fantastic food. It's so healthy, and it's so tasty. So I really miss it. I think there are some good Sri Lankan restaurants in Australia, but it's hard to replicate having the pure coconut in everything. So, you know, that's one of the advantages of being there.
I've got a text here that simply says Yala National Park.
Yes, I just went there last year, which is a jungle, and it's full of beautiful animals, including leopards, which are quite rare elsewhere. So that's a fantastic place to go. I stayed at a tented camp there called Wild Coast Tented Lodge, which is quite amazing. You can't go out at night because the animals actually wander through the actual resort at night. So you have to get someone to take you around in case a leopard suddenly leaps on you or an elephant comes rampaging through the camp, which does happen. The elephants are certainly there. So, but it's quite exciting. It is a national park, and unlike African safaris, it's a bit crowded. I was a bit disappointed. There were so many people driving around looking for leopards, which is a little bit disappointing, but it's still a really beautiful part of the world.
We're taking a look at Sri Lanka on travel this afternoon. Laura's given us a call. Hello, Laura.
Hi, how are you?
What did you want to say?
Well, I've just recently returned from a trip to Sri Lanka. The business that I work for, we have a very generous boss who took all of his staff and partners to Sri Lanka for 12 days over the Christmas break.
I wish I had such a generous boss. What was it that struck out for you, Laura?
Oh, I loved the history of the island. I loved the culture of the island. For me, what really struck me was the natural beauty. We went to Sigiriya, which was a giant monolithic rock in the centre of the country, kind of Sri Lanka's version of Uluru. And you can climb to the top of Sigiriya. There's ruins of an ancient palace at the top of it. It's about the equivalent of 50 flights of stairs, and it takes a couple of hours to climb to the top, but it's just a tremendous experience out in the middle of the jungle and with the views from the top.
Thank you for joining us. Is there a strong recognition of culture there as well, Lee, and respect of?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, I think the thing is that it's a very traditional country, and people, I think, have to respect that, because it's. I think that's part of the Sri Lankan kind of approach to everything. So all these beautiful jungle, like Sigiriya, I climbed on my birthday quite a few years ago, and it is quite a climb, but it's extraordinary because it's got sort of the claws of a lion at the top of it carved into the rock, and people are looking after it. But because Sri Lanka has been, one of the things about Sri Lanka is, of course, people weren't going there for so long. They had that 26-year-long civil war. And then after the Civil War, there was a tsunami, which of course affected a lot of the coastal areas and was very tragic. Then they had some bombings in 2019, which scared tourists away again, which was nothing to do with Sri Lanka, but it was in response to the New Zealand massacre. There was a kind of a Islamic response, so people got scared that Sri Lanka was again some kind of hotbed of terrorism, which it's not. Then there was COVID. Then they had the economic crisis, which was very problematic for them. People didn't want to come because they felt that there'd be no petrol and no food, and this was all incorrect. So because it's been a place that tourists haven't come to for really a very long time, they've had a really bad break, I think, with that side of things. Things have kind of got overgrown. So all those parts where you have ruins are just emerging from the jungle right now. So it's actually really wonderful because it hasn't been spoiled, which I think is one of the advantages of Sri Lanka over a lot of other places.
We're talking about Sri Lanka on Travel this afternoon. Lee Tulloch, weekly columnist for Traveller in The Age. Our guest, Rodney, joins us. Hello, Rodney.
Hi, Trevor. How are you?
Why do you think we should go to Sri Lanka?
Because it's the most wonderful place and it's so relaxing. The minute you get there, you feel you're on holidays.
Why is it so relaxing? What is it about Sri Lanka that makes it more relaxing than any other place, Rodney?
Well, I think the fact that most people speak the English, so even the common man on the street has a smattering of English. So you don't feel isolated, if you know what I mean. The palm trees, the beaches, the tea plantations, they're just wonderful.
Rodney, thank you. Lee, the coast, tell us about the beaches.
Okay, well, they're gorgeous. I mean, last year we stayed on the south coast near Tangol, which is very beautiful because unlike a lot of places in the world, it's actually still quite undiscovered. The beach that we were on was a very long beach, and it had a few kind of, there'd been sort of a few little sort of yoga retreats in the jungle along there, but there really wasn't terribly much. It's still very quiet. There is a very built-up part around Hikkaduwa, which is the hot surfing spot, I guess. That's a bit like Bali. It's to me, it's sort of ugly, and I would definitely stay away from that. But there are lots and lots of beautiful spots that are just not overrun with people at all. So if you're a surfer, you just go away from where it's crowded, and you'll find some other beautiful breaks and things there. They're really lovely beaches.
I've been told the surf in Sri Lanka is very good. I'd like to go.
Yes, well, my husband's a surfer, so last year was his birthday at this time of the year. So the resort we were staying at took him on a surprise surfing safari, which was fabulous, and he really had a great time. He said the waves were fantastic.
I was asked, we've got a text here asking whether or not it's humid. I guess can be in any place within that region. There's going to be humidity. Depends on when you go.
Yeah. Definitely humid, but of course you can, there are different parts of Sri Lanka and there are different coasts. So you have a coastal breeze, of course. If you're going to be by the coast inland, it might be a little different. The tea plantations are also up in the hills, so that's much cooler and it's not as humid. So I think if you're sort of worried about humidity, you can sort of escape into the centre of Sri Lanka, and it's quite different.
We're taking a look at Sri Lanka. If you've been there, you want to tell us why you chose to go there. If you're thinking about it and you've got any questions you'd like to ask, 1300 222 774. Leslie's joined us. Hello, Leslie.
Hello, Trevor.
What did you want to say?
Well, I just want to reiterate what your previous speakers have said. I have been fortunate to be going there for quite some time. because I have a pen friend who lives there, and so we have been corresponding for 62 years. So I've made several visits over the years to various parts, mostly to those popular spots that everybody has already mentioned.
Hey, Leslie, what changes have you seen during that time?
Well, being an Australian too, you're popular because you play cricket, and so the people are friendly. More so, because you're obviously associated with Australia and you must know everything about cricket. Poverty is still pretty ripe, and I was there just the first time was when there was still fighting, but there had been a truce between the North and the South because the Pope had come to Sri Lanka to beatify somebody, and so the Tamil people were allowed to head down to the South to see the Pope. So it was an unusually friendly time, but it also allowed me to go to the North to see the sacred areas up there while there was, which I couldn't have done had there not been the truce.
Leslie, thank you for joining us. You can join us 1300 222 774. Of course, that love of cricket, which would be shared by Australians as well, Lee.
Yes, well, of course, Leslie's right. They absolutely love us. And I was in Galle Fort, which is the famous kind of walled town there, which I absolutely love. I was in there last year, and there's a lot of Russians now who've kind of decamped to Sri Lanka, I believe, to avoid being conscripted in the war over there. And so there's a very strong Russian population there. And you go into a shop and they say, "Are you Russian?" And you go, "No." You say Australian. Well, of course, immediately everyone is so fantastic. Of course, they do want to talk about cricket, which I know very little about, but I know enough about to listen to what they say, because it is a kind of mutually shared thing. But can I say the people are the best? Last year I was wandering in a village, and I admired this lady's house, and she invited me in for a cup of tea. And then, over the phone we met her kids who are in Romania, and her husband came and took us to his local sort of Buddhist temple, which was the most amazing thing that we wouldn't have found by ourselves. And we exchanged addresses, and someone called me a few months afterwards. I mean, it's just incredible. You can just literally say hello to anybody, and as poor as they are, which, they obviously live very simple lives, they will give you anything. So it's a place where people want you to come to, and I think that's really important about places. If they want you, you should go.
Julia as well joins us. Hello, Julia. What did you want to say?
Hello. Yes, well, I'm just listening and fascinated by what people are saying. I was born in Ceylon, Sri Lanka, and grew up on a tea estate. My father was a tea planter, and it was the most amazing life. And I love that island. And just listening to what people say about the diversity, the beautiful beaches, was very different when we were there. We used to camp at beaches that now have big hotels on them. We'd go to the, to Yala and Wilpatu and the jungle, and there was nobody there. We were very lucky.
What a wonderful thing to have experienced a country at that time. Although now we get to go and see a heck of a lot more of the things that you've enjoyed as well, Julia. So just before we go, tell us one of the reasons, or the number one reason, Lee, that you think we should go there.
That is really hard.
You got 30 seconds to do it.
Okay. Well, I definitely think the people, the food, the diversity of it, and the incredible natural beauty. How's that? That's not one thing, but that's a few things.
I'm telling you, though, it's got me hooked, and I'm sure it's got many other people hooked as well. Thank you very much for telling us about it, Lee.
No, that's my pleasure.
Lee Tulloch, weekly columnist for The Traveller in The Age. A lot of beaches in the north and east are also... they're mass graves there. It's disappointing that sometimes people don't recognise that, and should be, as a tourist destination. That's a good point, and hopefully something that needs to be recognised. Afternoons on ABC Radio, we're off to the news.